In the horrific grip of marine captivity, Annette Eckis, the compassionate trainer, and Shamu, the once mighty Orca, share a tragic tale. Annette, torn between duty and empathy, grapples with the demands of a stage that transforms the majestic Shamu into a mere performer. The Orca, once a queen of the deep, now endured a cruel ballet of tricks, leaving her spirit broken by the relentless pressures of human entertainment. Prepare for the chilling tale of the first captive killer whale attack told from both human and orca. When Shamu first debuted in Seaworld, it was a show unlike anything that people had ever seen. A killer whale performing tricks, riding with trainers on its back, it was marvelous. The marine park had turned out to be a paradise of entertainment until one tragic day in 1971, when the ugly face of captivity revealed itself and Shamu attacked. Crowds watched in horror as the 9-year-old Orca threw a young Annette Eckis off her back, then gnashed down on her leg for the kill. The star of the show had suddenly gone berserk, leaving everyone with a first-hand glimpse of a killer whale in relentless frustration. Anna was rescued just in time. Behind the paradise of entertainment lies a sordid tale of a beautiful beast of nature, and its life cut short only to please humans. This is an endearing story of the life of Shamu, the first performing orca of Seaworld. For decades, the Seaworld franchise has wowed crowds in Texas, Florida, and California, with their star attraction being the orca shows. The killer whales were projected as educational and awesome entertainment for families. So successful, in fact, that the name Shamu turned into a brand and a money-making machine. Yet the main character at the center of it all was always an unwilling participant. An orca who was wrenched cruelly from its home in the ocean to live in a nightmare, entertaining humans. It all goes back to a sunny October day in 1965. Ted Griffin was about to set off a mission he enjoyed the most, capturing baby orcas. Griffin had caught a few before, and the sight of seeing a juvenile writhe and thrash in a net while its mother lay bleeding was a thrill like no other for him. Shamu would often roam the waters of Penco Puget Sound off Washington, and like every other day, she was with her mother. Griffin spotted the whales and seized his chance. The killer whale was no match for a seasoned whale hunter, and soon, Shamu found herself in a horrifying situation. These humans were hurling the sharpest weapons at her mother, who kept trying to protect her baby. There was very little that Shamu's mother could do except succumb to her grievous injuries. The large killer whale sank like a stone, leaving her baby at the mercy of a delighted Griffin. It was the beginning of a never-ending nightmare for Shamu. It may come as a surprise, but Seaworld was never intended as a home for Shamu. Seaworld did not even have performing orcas at the time of her capture. It was all a grand plan for the notorious Ted Griffin to make a mate for Namu, a male orca, which he kept at his Seattle Marine Aquarium. Namu was a massive 6.5-meter bull sold to Griffin for $8,000, who showcased the orca as his most prized exhibit in an open pen at Warriors Cove, part of his Seattle Marine Aquarium. Unfortunately, Namu displayed signs of unfathomable stress, often emitting terrifying screams the entire night. Griffin decided that a female mate might just calm him down, and that mate turned out to be Shamu. From the vast expanse of the ocean, Shamu found herself suddenly thrust into a small 3-sided pen, about 12 by 18 meters and 6 meters deep, kept afloat by empty oil drums. Even worse was how she had a stranger for company. She was not used to being around males because she was still young and always roamed alongside her mother. Shamu missed her mother often, crying and wailing just like Namu. What made things worse was how the pen bordered the open ocean. The appearance of free whales who frequently visited in solidarity with their captured mates only made things worse. Shamu rejected Namu from the start. He was not going to share a small space with a huge male and often fought with him. Griffin's master plan for future breeding was dashed. Realizing his mistake, he sold Shamu to Seaworld San Diego, and a new era in marine entertainment was born. Seaworld, the brand new attraction at Rock, California, was promoted as a marine lover's paradise. Founded in 1964, it encompassed all 22 acres along the shores of Mission Bay and became a resounding success within a few days of its inauguration. The appearance of Shamu at Seaworld skyrocketed the popularity of the marine entertainment company. Seeing small sharks, large turtles, and performing dolphins was one thing, but seeing a giant orca up close was a mind-blowing experience for many, except Shamu. From Griffin's hellhole to Seaworld, it was like jumping from the frying pan into the fire for Shamu. Her living space at Seaworld was no better than the Pennant Warrior's Cove. This was just as small and as claustrophobic. Shamu had now grown to 1,700 feet long, yet the tank she was housed in was just 20 feet by 30 feet. If Shamu stood vertically in the pool, the water would never cover her entire body. It was solitary confinement of the worst kind. From an unwilling mate to a male orca to a performing one at Seaworld, Shamu's transition was not an easy one. Seaworld was a completely alien environment. While she loved the water, she loved the feel of being able to swim, roll, and jump in the performing tank larger than hers. She was often puzzled why the humans poked, prodded, and forced her to do things she never wanted to. She didn't know how. Training to interact and perform stunts with humans was a nightmare for Shamu. She was scolded if she didn't oblige. She was starved and soon learned to associate cooperation with food. Seaworld was ecstatic. Shamu became a celebrity. She was featured on billboards, the subject of TV shows, and of course, the crowds. How the groups loved her, and each time she surfaced out of the water with a human standing on the tip of her nose. The group would go berserk and echo and chant, "Shamu, Shamu." Everyone was happy. Seaworld was raking in millions, but everything was not right with Shamu. She was falling into depression. Seaworld was oblivious to the mental and physical harm to the orca. Instead, the standalone marine parks soon opened more franchises in Orlando, Florida, Ohio, and San Antonio, Texas. More parks meant a demand for more orcas, and soon, several more juveniles were captured by men like Griffin and sold to Seaworld. Shamu performed at Seaworld for 6 years, but all was not right with the female orca. She was just 9 years old, but already showing signs of distress. Seaworld shrugged off all concerns, attributing Shamu's actions as normal stress. They failed to recognize how Shamu was reaching a breaking point, and desperation would soon turn to an attack. On April 19, 1971, Gail McLaughlin, Seaworld's public relations director, and Kent Burgess asked Seaworld's secretary, 22-year-old Annette Eckis, if she wanted to ride Shamu. They thought it would be an incredible publicity stunt, showing off how safe killer whale shows could be. McLaughlin and Burgess were naive and had no idea such actions could go wrong. Captive killer whales may be trained and obedient, but one thing not taken into consideration is their unpredictability. Moreover, such wild creatures view only trainers as masters, and their cooperation and loyalty are only directed at such individuals. Making them interact with a stranger is just asking for trouble, but it was arranged, and unsuspecting and excited Anna happily agreed. Anna was no novice to water. She was a trained scuba diver and an excellent swimmer, but interacting up close with a killer whale is an entirely different ballgame. Anna was warned before the stunt that it was a risk. Things could go wrong and she could fall off, but not in her wildest dreams did she envision an attack. Anna changed into a diving suit and got into the water with Shamu. Everything appeared normal. Anna followed all her cues and Shamu seemed to cooperate. Soon, Anna got onto the orca's back and raised her hand, smiled and waved to the crowd. As Shamu began swimming towards the deep end of the pool, disaster struck. One swift stroke, Shamu tossed Anna off, launching her into the water. Driven by instinct, years of depression and trauma, Shamu unleashed her rage on Anna. With her enormous teeth, Shamu grabbed the girl's leg and clamped down. Anna was trapped, and Shamu refused to let go. Anna screamed. She was in shock and could not believe what was happening. Why would Shamu attack her? If Shamu was not closer to the pool's edge, it might have been a terrifying tragedy for Seaworld. Nonetheless, all the excitement and joy soon turned into horror as the crowd watched the star orca drag Annette Eckis around in her mouth. Fortunately, other trainers sprung into action in attempts to distract the killer whale. By now, the water was turning red with the blood from Anna's anger. Shamu's teeth were embedded in her flesh and clamped shut like a vice. Soon, one of the trainers had the idea of driving the pool into the orca's mouth, forcibly prying her jaw open. The tactic worked, allowing Anna to break free. Anna was then taken to safety as Shamu swam around in circles in her pool, oblivious to what she had done. The crowd was all shocked and silent, and the terror turned into some iconic reprieve for Shamu. Her performing days were over.
I was so afraid I was going to drown, and because she would dive and go down, and I didn't know how long she would, be down there.
As for Annette Eckis, the girl suffered a horrible deep gash that required 100 stitches. In the same year, Anna sued Seaworld for fraud, negligence, and liability for an animal with vicious or dangerous propensities. She was awarded $17,500 in damages, and Seaworld's appeals for a non-suit and a new trial were denied. Even though Shamu was retired from performing, her life was worse than ever. The stimulation of performing was denied. She was made to live in her puny little tank, and the trauma took its toll. By the end of 1971, Shamu contracted a severe uterine infection, which did not respond to treatment. Too fragile and ill, she died of septicemia and was just 9 years old. In contrast, a free orca in the ocean can live to almost 90 years old, the average being 80. Shamu's death did not mark the end of Seaworld shows. The marine park has tasted billions and will never pass that up. A new orca, Helena, the first to be born and survive in captivity, adored the mantle of Shamu, and the show continued. Was it right of Seaworld to establish a live performing band that involved the suffering and captivity of a beautiful animal? We have our thoughts reserved, but maybe another orca's tale could give the answer. For 50 years, Seaworld was the go-to place for killer whale action. The aquatic park continuously brought in new orcas, making the Shamu show a must-see for anyone visiting the park. But in 2016, Seaworld began to close up shop on their killer whale breeding program. Due to multiple decades of people bringing to light the bad health of killer whales in captivity. But one notable incident sparked this new change to the park. Originated in 1971 with the first human incident involving orcas in captivity. A young Seaworld PR secretary by the name of Annette Eckis was riding on the back of the park's beloved orca, Shamu, as part of a film publicity stunt, when suddenly, she slipped off the whale and into the water. Shamu quickly turned on her, biting down on a leg and refusing to let go, leaving Annette screaming for her life as the 3-ton orca was hell-bent on bringing her down. This is the horrifying story of Annette Eckis, the first person to be attacked by an orca in captivity. Annette Eckis was a curious child, but as she got older, her life took meaning when she got to work as a secretary at Seaworld. She didn't only want to work with people, she wanted to help animals as well. In 1971, she was talked into being a part of the publicity stunt. She was supposed to ride a captive orca in a bikini, but it all went down horribly, and it was remembered as one of the worst orca attacks ever. Shamu, a southern resident killer whale, was born in the J-Pod around 1961. Growing up, she spent her days with her family, with a diet mainly consisting of salmon. Every summer, she and her mother joined the annual superpod gathering with other southern residents. In 1965, aquarium owner Ted Griffin, having acquired a killer whale named Namu, sought to capture another one. On October 31st, 1965, Shamu and her mother were spotted in Puget Sound by Griffin's capture team, and they decided to try and seize them. The chase lasted over 17 hours, and the whales were eventually netted in Henderson Bay on November 1st. Tragically, Shamu's mother died during capture. After being captured, Shamu was separated from her mother at just a shy age of 4 years old. This was very stressful for her, especially at that age, as orcas are social beings and have deep connections with other orcas. Now all alone, she was moved to Namu's winter pen, and they eventually tried to connect them. But incompatibility with Namu led to her being put up for sale. Ted Griffin landed a deal and sold her to Seaworld, which was then recently a new marine park in San Diego, and they were desperate for a main attraction. They bought her for $75,000, and it was here that the orca was named Shamu due to her connection, or lack thereof, to Namu. She made history as the first killer whale to travel by airplane and arrived at SeaWorld San Diego On December 20th, 1965, Seaworld hit the jackpot when they got their hands on Shamu. She wasn't just a whale, she was the start of something big. In the years that followed, Seaworld went on a killer whale shopping spree, bringing in hundreds of them from all over the world to multiple marine parks. They captured them in the wild, and when that became illegal, they started breeding them in captivity. Shamu's arrival at Seaworld marked a turning point for the park. Housed in a small pool near Dolphin Lagoon, she shared space with a Pacific white-sided dolphin named George. Shamu quickly adapted to performing and became a star of the show named Shamu Goes Hollywood. It all went well. People came to watch Shamu, and nobody could have possibly predicted the incident that would unfold in just a couple of years. Their Orca shows were growing in popularity, so much so that in 1967, two male southern residents, Ramu and Kilroy, were also caught and transferred to Seaworld. Ramu was the older one and was immediately put together with Shamu. Kilroy, being younger, didn't join them immediately. However, by 1969, he moved in with them. In 1969, the first major problem occurred when all three whales contracted the Hong Kong flu, but with antibiotics they eventually recovered. Shamu, as observed during her performances, reflected a mix of intelligence, curiosity, and adaptability. While her life in captivity raised ethical concerns, many acknowledged her unique qualities and the bond she formed with her trainers. The complexities of her personality underscored the challenges faced by marine animals in artificial environments. In December 1971, Seaworld introduced Candu to the mix, a female whale captured with Ramu and Kilroy. Candu was the young orca that was supposed to take the reins and be a star. She immediately got attention from trainers, and now Shamu didn't have to be the sole main attraction anymore when Candu grew a bit more mature. But this is when things got complicated. Due to poor living conditions, Candu passed away just a few months after she was introduced to SeaWorld San Diego. She was sick for about a month before passing due to pneumonia and stomach ulcers. After Candu died, they knew something had to be done for the killer whale, so they designed a new pen. In May later that year, Shamu was moved to SeaWorld's newly built Killer Whale Stadium, costing $1.5 million. Ramu took over her old habitat for some time for training purposes, but eventually joined Shamu in the new stadium shortly thereafter. Throughout her life at SeaWorld, Shamu was involved in various waterworks and performances. She showcased remarkable intelligence and adaptability, captivating audiences with her agility and grace. While Shamu's life was marred by the controversy surrounding captive marine animals, her behavioral incidents were mainly confined to her interactions with other whales and the challenges of adapting to captivity and being moved relatively often. Only a month after Shamu got a new and improved habitat, the difficulties started to kick in. On April 19, 1971, something went awry during a publicity stunt involving Shamu and 22-year-old park PR secretary Annette Eckis. The plan was for Eckis to ride on Shamu's back while wearing a bikini. However, things took a turn when Shamu's tail started fluttering, which is a sign of agitation. After just one lap around the pool, she made Annette slip off, and that's when things got intense. Shamu bit into her leg and held on tight. It took a trainer using a pole to pry Shamu's mouth open and free Annette from her jaws. She was soon rushed to the hospital, needing between 100 and 200 stitches, and the incident left her with both physical and mental scars. Some say that Shamu's unusual reaction might have been triggered by the bikini Eckis was wearing. You see, Shamu had only been used to swimming with trainers in wetsuits. This wasn't the first time Shamu acted aggressively towards people in swimsuits. She had a history of showing similar behavior towards a swimsuit model and even a SeaWorld trainer. To make matters more concerning, Shamu had been acting strangely since March of that year. Annette recalls the incident vividly to this day. She was basically sitting on Shamu's bottom jaw, with the teeth on her thighs. She was hanging on to the top of her head for the most of it. There was a lot of blood, but surprisingly, there was no pain. The water was cold and Annette was in shock for quite a while. She had to grab onto the wall and hold on for dear life as she was terrified that Shamu would dive and go down. In 2010, she was a brief guest on Larry King after more recent Orca attacks, where she described the incident in far greater detail. She described working as a secretary at Seaworld San Diego when she was asked to do this stunt for promotion to change the whale from a smaller tank to a larger tank. And so there was news media there at the time. She doesn't know why Shamu attacked her, except the theory that she had heard that no one had ever ridden an orca without a wetsuit, and no women had ever interacted with Shamu. Shortly after the attack, it was discovered that Shamu was pregnant. This is also what might have caused her aggression towards Annette. While not officially confirmed, it was also certain that the father was Ramu. Unfortunately, the joy of Shamu's pregnancy was overshadowed by the tragedy. On Sunday, August 29, 1971, Shamu passed away, and with her unborn calf. The cause of death was pyrometra, a severe uterine infection that can be life-threatening. Pyrometra often occurs due to hormonal imbalances, specifically fluctuations between estrogen and progesterone. During pregnancy, increased progesterone levels can lead to the thickening of the uterine lining, providing an ideal environment for bacterial growth. As the infection progressed, bacteria entered her bloodstream, causing septicemia. This led to a widespread inflammation and organ failure. Shamu's death marked the end of an era, as she was the first killer whale to be captured intentionally for live display and become an iconic figure at SeaWorld. But her demise did not halt the shows at SeaWorld. SeaWorld San Diego announced that Kilroy would continue with the performances despite everything that had happened. Shamu's life included not only moments of awe during performances, but also instances of unpredictability and tragedy. The incident with Annette Eckis shed light on the challenges of interacting with killer whales in captivity, and Shamu's pregnancy and subsequent death revealed the delicate nature of life in a marine park setting. But her legacy extends beyond her time at SeaWorld. Her name has become synonymous with killer whales in captivity, serving as the stage name for subsequent orcas at SeaWorld. The debate surrounding the ethics of keeping killer whales in captivity gained momentum in the aftermath of Shamu's life, shaping public perception and influencing marine mammal regulations. SeaWorld did try to distance itself from the name Shamu due to the tragedy, but it stuck around and they had to embrace it. Shamu's name isn't just a name, it's a brand. SeaWorld made Shamu a superstar, and her legacy lives on as the trademark stage name for all of SeaWorld's killer whales. It was everywhere, on merchandise, in shows, park locations, video games, and in advertisements. Shamu became a symbol for SeaWorld despite passing away. It's interesting, though, that the character of Shamu took on a bit of a twist. Shamu, despite being female, was often shown as a he. In 2004, SeaWorld even released a video game called Shamu's Deep Sea Adventure, where Shamu, the male character, had to save SeaWorld from Poseidon and the Kraken. SeaWorld really ran with the Shamu theme. The killer whale shows had Shamu in their names, like Shamu Rocks America and the Shamu Adventure. The stadiums where the massive shows were held were called the Shamu Stadium for a long time. And at long last, in 2016, SeaWorld noticed a shift in public opinions on orcas and finally ended their orca breeding program due to a combination of strong protests, many enormous sponsorship cancellations, and a celebrity wave of criticism. It all started from backlash due to the 2013 documentary Blackfish, and the orcas currently in captivity will be the last generation to perform. Should SeaWorld have halted live orca shows prior to Annette's incident? How does such bad care towards animals go unnoticed for decades? Our opinions are reserved, but maybe another orca attack story could answer these questions.